Mr Chair, Honourable Indigenous brothers and sisters, and in particular the Indigenous Youth Caucus, and our hosts, the Haudenosaunee, and other delegates to the Permanent Forum. The Māori Caucus first wishes to acknowledge the contribution of the peace movement Aotearoa in the drafting of this statement. In regards to the New Zealand Government's constitutional review process, the Māori Caucus makes the following recommendations. That, in recognising the urgent imperative to remedy the profound prejudice to Māori as a result of the doctrine of discovery, the Permanent Forum reminds the State Party of its obligations under the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights in particular, to implement legislative policy measures giving effect to those obligations. Recommends that the State Party refrains from implementing any findings or recommendations from its constitutional review process until it has obtained the free, prior and informed consent of Māori, and any recommendations put forward by the Māori-led Independent Constitutional Working Group, and calls on the State Party to fully recognise and enable Māori to gain effective remedies for any breaches of all such aforementioned Indigenous rights. Mr Chair, from our perspective, one of the main challenges to full implementation of our Indigenous rights as expressed through the Declaration and other human rights instruments is our critical situation in New Zealand on our constitutional arrangements, which may be summarised in this way. New Zealand's human rights protections are fragile in the absence of a comprehensive constitutional document or entrenched legal provisions. The New Zealand Bill of Rights Act and the Human Rights Act are not enforceable against the legislature, meaning Parliament can pass discriminatory legislation such as the Foreshore and Seabed Act 2004. We note the New Zealand Government's statement yesterday that New Zealand's founding document, the Treaty of Waitangi, is, quote, of fundamental constitutional and historical importance, end quote. However, it is the Māori version of that document, Te Treaty, which is of fundamental constitutional importance, not the English version. The collective and individual Māori rights guaranteed by the Crown under Te Treaty still remains vulnerable. We also note the State Party's comment yesterday that the New Zealand Government is, quote, proud of its unique framework for settling the grievances of its Indigenous people, end quote. And we wish to remind the State Party of two significant points. First, the correct reference to Māori is Indigenous peoples. And second, Māori have never given our free, prior and informed consent for what we consider to be a Crown Treaty settlement process which violates the standards contained in the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It is correct that the current New Zealand Government has established a constitutional review panel. However, the terms of reference of that panel are restricted in our view to merely making superficial adjustments to the constitutional status quo, while what is really required is radical transformation. Māori, on the other hand, have established our own independent constitutional working group with the following terms of reference: to work on developing a model for a constitution for our country based on our tikanga, or rules, and fundamental values, he whakapūtanga o te rangatiratanga o New Tireni, the Declaration of Independence 1835, and Te Treaty o Waitangi, and the work already carried out in this area. To give consideration to the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the Bolivian Constitution, and the international context. To ensure that whānau and hapu or Māori peoples are fully informed and participate fully in the development of that model. To discuss the model with government once Māori are satisfied with it. Finally, Mr Chair, in the spirit of giving effect to a doctrine of rediscovery of Indigenous peoples' rights, We encourage and support our own Indigenous brothers and sisters around the world to likewise pursue their own process of constitutional transformation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.